Welcome to Digital Non-Linear Editors. I don't know all the history, but I do know that films used to be filmed on film. And because it was a tangible, tactile, physical item, they had to literally use scissors and chop up the film and then tape it back together in the way that they wanted it to play out. They had these massive machines that they could run the films back and forth and find the exact right frame that they wanted to make the cut at, and then they would literally adhere it like with tape or adhesive to another part of the film where they wanted it to run. So that's why there's that term, it didn't make the cut, or it's on the cutting room floor, because it was literally a room where they cut up film. It's kind of fun. Nowadays, we're obviously not doing that physically. Even most movies that are shot on physical film are then digitized, and they're still editing digitally. So they're called non-linear editors because you no longer have to run the film linearly from start to finish in order to find the place where you want to cut. You can just grab any clip and throw it into any part of the timeline and rearrange however you want. You no longer have to edit linearly. Pretty much all modern editing softwares are NLEs. There are 4 main softwares that you need to know about. Avid is the industry standard when we're talking about Hollywood, about movies, about TV, about blockbusters, about cinema. All of the honorary American cinema editors and pretty much every big movie is edited on Avid. Funny enough, though, Avid is not the industry standard for all of the projects that I've ever worked on. In fact, I still don't know Avid. So you need to know that Avid exists. You need to know that if your goal is to make it into Hollywood eventually, you need to be an Avid editor. However, I don't know Avid. You don't need Avid unless you're a Hollywood editor, and there are actually other programs that are more of the industry standard. The 3 main competitors are Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. Some of the newer editors might be hoping for one that's easier to deal with, easier to learn. It's not really how it works. They all have things that are better and they all have things that are worse. There are pros and cons to each. So don't really go into it with an idea of which one's easiest. The reality is that if you want to be a competitive editor in demand, you're probably going to need to know all 3 eventually. I recommend that you learn all 3 eventually. For the purposes of this course, we will be working in Premiere Pro. DaVinci Resolve basically used to be exclusively a coloring program, and it was designed by Blackmagic to complement their cameras. But in the past few years, they've added so much functionality that it is a competitive editing software now. A lot of editors use Blackmagic exclusively and have no issues. It's pretty much on par with Adobe Premiere. And it's free. Final Cut Pro is developed by Apple. It used to be the industry standard across the board. Everyone in video who wasn't working for Hollywood was working in Final Cut Pro. Then, when they released Final Cut Pro 7, they streamlined it and changed the core mechanics of the software. And unfortunately, they made a lot of their professional editors mad, and a lot of them left the program. And Final Cut Pro was left in the dust for a long time. Nowadays, it's pretty much back to where it was before in terms of its mechanics and functionality. It works as a professional software. It is a Macintosh exclusive. It is very good. It is not quite as robust as Adobe or DaVinci Resolve. Now, there's a few reasons why we're using Premiere Pro for this course. It's not that deep. Ultimately, we just need to pick one so that all of us students are on the same page and I can teach you in a software. I had to pick one, okay? But I ended up picking Premiere because, first of all, it is probably the most industry standard out of all of them. Final Cut Pro editors are a little bit more niche. They're harder to find. I've never had a single client that required me to work in DaVinci Resolve, but the large majority of my clients have required me to work in Premiere Pro. You are much more likely to find more jobs if you're a Premiere Pro editor. So we're going to be working in this course to learn Premiere Pro. What's nice is once you know one editing software, it's a lot easier to learn the others because they are very similar in a lot of ways. They think a little bit differently. There is some nuance, and so you're going to need to learn the differences. But Premiere Pro is what we're using.